Call to order this hearing of the Minnesota Senate Taxes Committee, Thursday, May 8th at 8:38 a.m. Quorum is present. The first item on our agenda is to adopt the minutes from May 7th. Are there corrections or additions to the minutes? Seeing none, they stand approved as presented. Our first motion that is going to be made by Senator Klein. Senator Klein moves to take Senate File 2374 from the table. All in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. The motion prevails, and the Senate File 2374 is before us. Senator Klein moves to adopt the A4 DE amendment that was presented yesterday. All of those in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. The motion prevails and the amendment is adopted. Senator Klein moves the A7 amendment. It is technical corrections and additions that were before us yesterday, or came to us from yesterday. Senator Klein, I believe you have an explanation on page and line, if you want to give that to us.
Thank you, Chair Rest. The A7 technical amendment makes the following changes. At line 1.3, it modifies the effective date for change made to interest rate charged on confessions of judgment. This is Article 2, Section 22 of the bill. Line 1.4 modifies the appropriation for soil and water conservation district aid for fiscal year 26 and 27. This is Article 4, Section 8. Line 1.6 adds a section to the public finance article relating to notice requirement for property tax abatements to be consistent with other notice requirement changes within the article. And line 1.17 corrects a cross-reference in Article 10, Section 28, relating to withdrawal and release from the Sustainable Forest Incentive Program. Madam Chair, that is the A7.
Any questions? Senator Driscowski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a technical question, line 1.11, I see it says at least once, at least 10 days. I think at least is at least in there twice. Am I reading the right amendment? A-7?
I'm going to call on Ms. Pollock. So the thing is, in the political subdivision, at least once, at least 10 days, but less. That is what is,
Maybe.
Correct.
Now that I read the context, Madam Chair, maybe it is correct. It's just awkward. I just thought I saw duplication.
Mr. Sylvian did explain line 111.
Madam Chair, Senator Driscowski, I think reading it is correct. So the requirement is that notice must be made at least one time, and that notice must be made at least 10 days, but not less than 30 days before the hearing. That's kind of how I would read it, so that it's a one-time notice, but it must happen at least 10 days prior to the hearing.
Okay.
As I read, I agree with that. It just was awkward for me, and I thought maybe it might have been a typo or something that we needed to correct. Thank you.
Yesterday, Senator Driscowski, I had a similar problem with a comma, if you recall. So I feel your pain here. Okay, we have Senator Klein's motion to adopt the A7 amendment. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. The motion prevails and the amendment is adopted. Senator Klein, you have another amendment to offer.
Madam Chair, I offer the A10.
Senator Klein offers the A10. The A10 actually is my proposal, but I decided to stay in the chair and just ask others to offer them on my behalf. In the bill, there is a in the, I believe, the miscellaneous article, there are any number of placeholder provisions. One of them includes the proposal that has been with us for a couple of years now, dealing with directed payments arising from repurposing of the tax on the sales tax on the ballpark. And there was kind of mutual decisions made with regard to the work that had been done by the county to, and myself over time, to put that aside for a while and really focus on the statewide provisions and bills that were before the Health and Human Services Committee. With the recent, really, lack of progress on those provisions, I decided to go back and put in the agreement that, and the language, say for one provision in the tax bill, which would just fill in what that placeholder is. And this is language that has been worked on by Hennepin County, certainly involving North Memorial that is involved in this program, and also the Minnesota Twins. The one provision that at this point is not concluded was the additional funding by the county for a housing program. And I thought that issue should actually be dealt with separately. So this is language that has been seen by this committee before, off and on for the last couple of years, and I would appreciate the courtesy of being able to deal with it directly at this point. And I have asked Senator Wicklund if she would have any objection to us going forward at this point with this language in this bill, and she has no objections and would not be asking for this bill then to come to Health and Human Services. So so that's what it is. It's a directed payment program. Dividing the proceeds, parts of the proceeds equally between the county and North Memorial Hospital, which is in my district, and then providing for the extension, the possibility of the extension of the Twins lease on Target Field. Senator Nelson.
Madam Chair, I just wanted to be clear, but I think it's very clear in your description and in the A10. This applies specifically to Hennepin County.
Yes.
And North Memorial. I just wanted to get that on the record.
Thank you for that
Thank you.
clarification. Yes. Anyone else? Senator Klein, do you want to call for the roll? I'm ready for it to go in, if you don't mind.
Madam Chair, I move the 810.
No. Yes, thank you. Discussion, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Thank you very much. The amendment is, the motion prevails and the amendment is adopted. Other amendments? Senator Dibble.
No one else has amendments.
I know, listen, it's a good day.
I'm
a great
good to go.
bill.
So, Madam Chair, I just have a series of amendments. I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
What?
Oh, I know.
Do your
I'll
amendments
come
need-
back to it.
We're so inexperienced at doing
I
this,
see.
right?
I didn't hear that.
Senator Dibble, do you have amendments to be passed out?
Yes.
Okay.
So, I mean, we can pass them all out. I have 4. 3 of them I'm going to offer and withdraw.
Okay.
So if staff wants to hand out the,
I want to make sure that the topic is on the table, even if we're not going to put it
great.
on.
So we have, yes, exactly. We have the A9, the A11, the A12, and the A13. Those can all come around.
Okay, does everybody have these or not?
No.
No,
No.
okay, here they come. Which one do you want to start with?
I'll start with the A9. I'll move the A9.
Senator Dibble offers the A9 amendment.
Well, it's coming around. Madam Chair, this is a variation on a theme. It's similar. It deals with a solid waste policy. It was a bill, I can't remember my Senate file number. And it's just something I think it's just worth the public and the committee being aware of as perhaps a future idea. And what it does is it creates a slightly preferable tax rate on the solid waste tax for those nonprofits that receive household waste and play a fairly substantial role in dealing with them in an environmentally responsible fashion. That's a long-winded way of saying it gives a preferential solid waste rate for organizations like Goodwill, St. Vincent de Paul, those sorts of things, because it diverts quite a bit from our landfills and other ways that we dispose waste. And so it's an idea I think that's worthwhile, and would just like to kind of put it out there into the world for consideration.
So Senator Dibble, does this amendment have a fiscal impact?
Madam Chair, yeah, there would be
Okay.
a revenue implication. It'd be a loss of revenue
Okay.
to, well, the general fund, of course, and the other
Yeah.
sources that the solid waste fee goes to, or tax goes to.
I understand, thank you.
If I'm not mistaken, I actually think it is included in the other bodies package. I think it might be coming into conference from the other side,
Okay,
if I remember correctly. So,
thank you.
All right, I will withdraw the A9.
The A9 amendment is withdrawn.
Madam Chair, I'd like to offer, I'll just go in numerical order here. I'll offer the A11.
Senator Dibble moves the A11 amendment.
So while that comes around, Madam Chair, you and I have texted a little bit about this last night, and this would, oh no, I'm sorry, this is a different subject. That's the next one. So this actually is a bill that Senator Champion had introduced, and it exempts the materials and supplies, et cetera, for the construction of the amphitheater for the Upper Harbor Terminal in the city of Minneapolis. If members and the public are not aware, the Upper Harbor Terminal is in North Minneapolis, so it's on the Mississippi River on the west side of the riverbank, a large area that used to load commodities and all kinds of materials onto water shipments or receive the same up there. It was a long time obsolete. It's 20, 30 plus acres of land that are being redeveloped into all kinds of different uses, parks and businesses and residences and entertainment venues. This is the entertainment venue. The operator, I think there's a consortium, but the main owner and operator would be First Avenue. This sales tax exemption would be valued at about $300,000. So again, I don't want to throw your bill out of balance, Madam Chair. But as I understand, as was explained to me yesterday when the advocates came and asked for this to be included, this is kind of the last piece they need that would then put the final piece of their financing and their finances in order for them to break ground, I think as early as this year. So again, it's just an idea that I wanted to put out there into the world for consideration. I don't think it's been picked up on the other side, so I don't think it's kind of anywhere right now. All right, that's all I have.
Okay,
Any questions?
and so Senator Dibble, are you withdrawing this
I'll
amendment?
withdraw the A11.
Thank you very much.
All right.
The next one?
The next one, Madam Chair, is A12. So that comes around, that would delete the elimination of the $10 million appropriation for the city of Minneapolis that is in the bill. Again, you know, you and I have discussed it, and I understand your perspective and respect it. But I just wanted to share a little bit of more information, at least on the port. There's two parts to that appropriation. There's a $2 million part and an $8 million part. I have some information about the $8 million part of it, which is the Lake Street grant, which there might be some perception out there that money was put in place and then hadn't been used. And in fact, the intentions of those funds are actually underway. The short summary version is it's there to support and bolster the businesses that have suffered quite a bit of stress since the civil unrest and COVID and others. It's targeted at businesses in the Lake Street corridor. Small businesses, you know, a lot of bootstrap mom and pop businesses, and it provides, there's a foundation that's working closely with the Lake Street Council to provide a number of services, including real estate consulting, asset building, rebuilding, business advising, marketing and branding support, public relations and advertising, some arts and events, some placemaking, and, you know, generating some vitality and active vibrancy, and safety and security. You know, it was launched late last year, and you know, funds are being expended in increments of, you know, around $200,000, you know, at a time. And you know, a number of the arts initiatives have gotten underway and that sort of thing. So it is happening, and it is adding a lot to the revitalization of Lake Street that's been struggling quite a bit over the last few years. And I can attest, as I drive up and down Lake Street, you know, some of the promotions of Lake Street and businesses on Lake Street, as well as some of the arts pieces that create vibrancy and placemaking are actually happening. And then the $2 million is all about the Roof Depot site, where the city of Minneapolis was going to put Public Works marshaling yard that relates to their water, clean water functions, drinking water functions, and you know, that's of course in the middle of an industrial area that neighborhood has been trying to address for quite a while, and there was a successful negotiation with the city to use that property for another purpose, you know, around you know, urban agriculture and things like that. And so the $2 million was a piece to help put that financing in place. So that's what that's about. So just wanted to start that conversation, and I'll respond to any questions or.
Well, Senator Dibble, the explanation that you just gave, do you, is that a written document that you could share at some point
Yeah.
with me as we go into
Certainly.
conference?
Certainly.
The House bill that at least is before the House Taxes Committee, I should know, but I don't know whether they moved that out of committee yesterday. I have a feeling they did, and they've sent it to Ways and Means. Is that your understanding?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
Mr. Sylvia says that did happen. That provision is in the, from Representative Gomez, is in their bill. And as I understand it, it canceled and then repurposed that 10 million, not identically to what it was done in 2023. So I'm reluctant. And so we saw that it was being canceled, redirected for it another purpose, and said that's worthy of discussion, and certainly in the conference committee. So I appreciate your bringing it up, and that you would withdraw it and give me that information for all of us that will be on the conference committee, to see if that is something that all of us can endorse.
Great, awesome.
But
Appreciate that.
with the understanding that if you take that $10 million, you have to find replacement money for it, and I doubt that that's happening in this amendment.
It is not.
It's not, so that's another reason to oppose it. But maybe this is maybe there are a $10 million one-time costs that will come up as a substitute in some other aid program.
Great, I appreciate it. I appreciate the conversation.
Sure.
So I withdraw the A12.
Thank you, Senator Dibble. The A12 is withdrawn.
So, Madam Chair, I would offer the A13,
Yes.
which I do want to have a vote on. And very quickly, Madam Chair, just simply removes the placeholder language for sports betting. And the reason I'm offering that is because, you know, I know there are a number of other placeholders, all of which have received either some support or, you know, have been fairly thoroughly vetted. Sports betting actually has had quite a bit of discussion and debate, and has proven, has shown to be far from consensus at this
Indeed.
point. And it makes me, I'm a little leery of sports betting coming into the tax bill so late in the session. And so that's why I would offer that.
Okay. Senator Klein.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair, and I plan to vote no on the A13 and encourage members to join me. The chair has set aside some consideration for our Senate to study the issue of sports wagering. Certainly that is important work before this legislature, and to deal with the chairs of the relevant committees to understand, you know, the implications should we ever move forward with legalized mobile sports wagering in this state. I want to defer to the chair's prerogative in that priority, and I don't think there's any harm done by the language included in the bill. So, members, I'm going to vote no.
Senator Miller.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't think it's an accurate statement to say that there's not consensus on a sports betting bill. There's certainly bipartisan opposition, but there is also bipartisan support. Senator Klein and I, along with many other legislators on both sides of the aisle in both chambers, have been working on this issue for multiple years. And last year, we actually did reach a consensus with the wagering stakeholders here in Minnesota. So there's been a lot of work on it, and there is actually consensus for those that support the issue, but also fully understand that while there is bipartisan support, there's certainly bipartisan opposition as well.
Senator Drazkowski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Certainly, this legislature has been discussing this issue or attempting to discuss it, and it's happened largely in the State Government Finance Committee, Madam Chair. That is a committee of jurisdiction for this issue. There have been multiple efforts to try to bring bills through there. The right bill hasn't come through yet. If indeed there is a desire of the legislature to do sports betting, it hasn't materialized in the place that it needs to materialize. And really, Madam Chair, this provision in this bill is misplaced. It's really kind of an end run on the State and Local Government Finance Committee. And I think for that reason alone, we should support Senator Dibble's amendment and not have this provision in what is the Senate tax bill. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Drazkowski. Further discussion, Senator Nelson.
Thank
Senator
you.
Weber, then.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I agree with the comments from Senator Drazkowski as well. And I think all of us have been here long enough that we have seen what happens when there are these end runs around the committees that bills belong into, and they show up in the middle of an important omnibus bill on the Senate floor. And so for that reason, I support the Dibble amendment, and I will ask for a roll call.
Yes, there'll be a roll call. Senator Weber.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As it relates, I'm not going to address the amendment itself. As it relates to the study, I think the one comment I wasn't intending to make, but since it's up for discussion, if there is a study that is done, I think the one group that was left out to be involved in that study are our horsemen, who, quite frankly, have a vital interest in that whole picture. And I would hope that if that study does go forward, that those individuals could be included as well. Thank you.
Okay. Senator Housechildt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Everybody's spoken, but not everything's been said yet. I just want to say, as a younger legislator, as a millennial, I want to signal to my fellow millennials that I strongly support sports betting. I think this is one of those issues where young people are sitting here saying, why is my government restricting me from just being able to enjoy something in my life? Simple statement. I know there's other issues that folks care about, but I really want to send that strong signal that we're listening to our young people who just want to be able to enjoy the sports that they're watching and maybe place some money on it. So thanks, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Housechildt. Anyone else? We have asked for Senator, because it is a roll call, for Senator Putnam to return to the committee to participate in that vote, but I'm going to call on Senator Dibble, and then we'll wait for Senator Putnam, and quite frankly, I don't know how he's going to vote, but I think he should be recorded. Senator Dibble.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I don't have anything further to add, other than I'm just a little dubious of bringing sports betting into this large omnibus bill, because it's a big subject, to the points that have been made about having this go through state and local and the other relevant committees. Thanks.
Madam Chair, thank you. While we're waiting for Senator Putnam, I have a comment on the A9 amendment that Senator Dibble withdrew related to residential generators. And while I don't expect to be on the conference committee, those members that are on the conference committee, if this bill gets to a conference committee, I would just encourage you. I would just encourage you to also consider residential waste collectors when providing some preferential tax treatment here in Minnesota.
Thank you.
That's a joke, everybody.
We got that. We did get that. We're in such a tentative mood this morning. Until Senator Putnam arrives, we're in recess. We'll come back to order. There's a roll call asked on the A13 amendment. The clerk will take the roll.
Senator Rest?
No.
Senator Klein?
No.
Senator Weber?
Pass.
Senator Dibble?
Yes.
Senator Drazkowski?
Aye.
Senator Housechildt?
No.
Senator Miller?
No.
Senator Nelson?
Yes.
Senator Putnam?
No.
Senator Weber, do you continue to pass?
No, I will vote no.
There being 3 yeses and 6 noes, the motion does not prevail and the amendment is not adopted. Further discussion or are there other amendments to begin with? Members, I made a speech at the end of the committee yesterday about this bill going forward, and I don't intend to add to those comments this morning. Is there anyone else who would like to speak about the bill before we take a motion to send it to the floor? Senator Miller.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, I just want to express my concern and disappointment with the reductions to both county program aid and local government aid. Several of us, especially those of us in greater Minnesota, both sides of the aisle have been advocating for that funding for many years. And generally what we see happen is when there are cuts to county program aid and or local government aid, we see those costs shift onto property taxes. So when you reduce county program aid or local government aid, property taxes tend to go up, and that's very concerning. So I just wanted to express my concerns with those reductions in the bill. I'm certainly not a fan of the tax increases and several other things in the bill, but those two are the two that are very, very concerning for me, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Miller. Anyone else? Senator Drazkowski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Madam Chair, for your leadership of the committee this year. I like the way you run your meetings. I think I've said that before, and I appreciate your leadership. We entered this session hearing rhetoric from members of the Senate, and including Democrats and including members of this committee, who said they were listening to Minnesotans and said that, we need to solve what's in front of us without a tax increase. And that was the discussion. We even had the governor come forward with his proposal and try to camouflage some of his tax increases to appear as if they were tax cuts in order to add to that narrative or to try to develop that narrative. But what we have before us is 180 degrees from that. The people of Minnesota got smoked the last biennium. Another $10 billion tax increase after this legislature spent $19 billion, unprecedented in the history of our state, of overcollection of the people's money, the hardworking people of the state that actually do the work to make this government go. And, I talked to a constituent the other day, and he said, well, what's going on there? What are you guys doing up there? I said, well, we're trying to persuade the legislature not to increase your taxes again. And he just could not believe it. He said, you know what? I'm out of money. He said, I'm out of money. I don't have any money left for this. And the frustration amongst the people in Minnesota, Madam Chair, members, is palpable. We see, instead of doing what the people of Minnesota in their family budgets and their business budgets have to do, and that is live within our means, instead of doing that, this government just wants to take more and more and more. And in this tax bill, you take another $365 million this biennium, another $370 next biennium. That's $750 million in 4 years. We're heading southbound at 100 miles an hour in the northbound lane. That's what we have going on right now. That's what this bill is. And at some point, this state is going to have a crash course with reality, and we need to turn around and get out of the lane we're in. It's the wrong lane for where we need to be headed. I don't have a lot more than that to say, Madam Chair, members. I could drone on and on about how taxed we are and how much welfare this state has, and I'll have more of that type of discussion on the floor. The huge amounts of welfare that we plow into this tax bill that's disguised as tax cuts. It's always perplexed me, and we pumped a whole bunch more into it last year, including for illegal aliens, including inflationary adjustments for the welfare in the bill. And Democrats won't let go of all of those spending commitments that they made. They are even trying to shift some of this government burden onto counties and other bills, and won't retrench from that. I mean, for crying out loud, we can't even get this legislature to cancel the bicycle welfare that's put in the bill for electric bicycles. For crying out loud. $2 million of people in Minnesota, the Democrats won't let go of $2 million of bicycle welfare in order to meet the needs of this budget reality. So that's all I have, Madam Chair. I'm going to cut it off now.
Good.
Thank you for your indulgence, and I knew you'd appreciate that. Thank you.
Because Senator Drazkowski, I would challenge 90% of your statements. And I'm glad that you have given me a kind of a teaser, because I look forward to rebutting that 90% on the floor of the Senate to talk about how this is an excellent bill for the people of Minnesota. And you have to be really wealthy, or a multinational corporation, or Elon Musk to complain about this bill, because the constituents you're talking about will not see their taxes raised on account of it through state taxes. I know.
It's a match.
It's a match, yes. We'll be looking forward to it. Senator Nelson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, full disclosure, I'm neither the wealthy nor the multinational corporations. I have nothing in common there. But what I would say,
You are a Minnesotan, and you will not pay a dime for the social media tax.
and might I continue, Madam Chair? Truly, it's always a joy to serve on the tax committee. It's where very important, all committees are important, but I especially have an affinity for the tax committee. And you have run a very good committee, Madam Chair, and I think that's important, where ideas can be discussed thoughtfully, and that has always been the case here, so I think that is a very positive thing. I do believe that you were handed a tough target, $735 million of either tax hikes or reducing in tax aids and credits. That's a tough pill to swallow. And I know that you've probably spent a lot of time in trying to figure out how to do that. But I have to say there's some things that I think have not been mentioned that are going to affect every Minnesotan, and we can, discuss it more later. But, the LGA and the CPA cuts are coming at a very, it's unfortunate that we are in this position, and we know that it's a bit of a budget whiplash from the $18 billion surplus of the budget that we're in right now, and now to be faced with a $6 billion shortfall. But the point is, when we do things like reduce local government aid and county program aid, our local units of government, they are facing the same things the state has been facing. Inflation, increased costs. Then we heaped on top of them increased mandates to make it even worse, specifically if we're talking about schools, which are not in the LGA CPA calculation. But my concern is what's going to happen at home as should this tax bill pass. What's going to happen at home is our local counties are still going to have to carry out everything that we have handed to them. And so are our cities, and yet they're going to be losing $20 million to do so at a time where inflation is also starting to rise. So I think that is a problem. And also, I would be remiss if we didn't talk about the cannabis aid. That was one of the pieces, I believe, that helped get the cannabis bill passed, was we were listening to our local units of government who were asking to enforce this. And I can recall on the Senate floor when I think $10 million was added specifically for the cannabis aid. You know, maybe that helped get the bill passed. I don't know. But I'm very concerned about what I see happening here, which is we are shifting costs down to our local units of government. And I know, we know, they know, there's one way to recoup those costs and do what the state requires, and that is to raise property taxes, Madam Chair. And that's coming at a very difficult time for Minnesotans. Those property taxes at a time when home values are increasing, senior citizens are living on fixed incomes. So I'm just really concerned about it's not necessary. We didn't have to be here in this situation, but here we are, and those are my overwhelming concerns are we're passing the buck down to our local units of government, and they're going to pass that on in local property taxes. Thank you.
Senator Housechildt, I'll call on you last.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, members. Thank you for this bill, Madam Chair. I know I've told you that personally, but I want to publicly thank you for this bill. I've made no, I've been unafraid to point out that a lot of the proposals that were on the table when it came to the tax portion of the budget from the governor's office, that there were severe targeting of northern Minnesota, whether it was the PILT targets for public land payments to northern counties in particular, whether it was Sustainable Forest Incentive Act funding to protect our forests, protect our climate, ensure our forestry industry was strong, whether it was AIS, our aquatic invasive species, which honestly predominantly protects northern Minnesota lakes because those are the ones that still don't have the invasive species, or SWCD funding, all of those types of things. And so, Madam Chair, what I'm really, really pleased with, I think most with this bill, is that we were able to fight back against those cuts. We have protected northern Minnesota and made sure that we were not the targets of those cuts. Now, there are still cuts in here, but I think making sure that it didn't target one region over another was a really important piece that I wanted to make sure I voiced early on, and I'm pleased that this bill does that. Getting to the very positive parts of this bill, and I love the theme that you've come up with on embracing the modern economy. You know, I've talked a lot about the crisis that we face in EMS and rural ambulance, and Senator Rarick brought a bill, I think it was last year as well, that is looking at how we can incentivize our small communities in particular to come together to regionalize their fire services and their ambulance services. This is really important because while there are struggles with federal reimbursement levels, workforce, the distances in rural communities, what we can do is provide them aid at the state level, but we can also incentivize our rural communities to come together, to bring their licenses together to say, hey, maybe there's a different way to do this. And if you do it a different way, the state is going to incentivize you by providing an aid to help you do that. It's a tough conversation to go to your local communities and say, you might have to give up your license. Why don't you coordinate with other communities? But if we bring a carrot to the table and say you're going to have an aid to do it, like we do for LGA and CPA for communities, I think that's going to help them get there and start thinking about regionalizing ambulance services. The thing I'm most pleased in this bill is that we are modernizing how we fund schools, particularly our rural schools. There was a real disservice that happened, and I don't want to blame anybody that was involved, but in 2001, they made the decision to pull seasonal recreation properties away from rural school districts and send it to the state. I don't know how that happens, but it is an inequity, and we talk a lot about inequity, right? You hear those buzzwords, especially on my side of the aisle. What we don't talk enough about is the inequities in rural communities. And this was a direct cost shift away from rural schools, sending it to the state level. So what we've done is come up with a pretty unique way that we can create an aid back to those school districts that have a lot of cabins and wealthy, frankly, properties on their lakes and make sure that they get a portion back for their school districts. This is going to have a profound effect on school districts that have maybe 30, 40, 50% of their properties as second homes. Think about that. If your community has 50% of the homes not even homesteaded, those property taxes should go to local schools. It's so simple that it's maddening. So I'm really glad that we have this provision in the bill. Helium. We have found the largest, most concentrated helium deposit in the world in northern Minnesota. Once again, northern Minnesota can provide the minerals that we need to advance a modern economy. And I get to be part of creating a tax structure that benefits local communities. I didn't think as a new Iron Range legislator that I would get the chance to create an entirely new framework for minerals, but here I am having it in the tax bill in the Senate. That's a pretty special thing. And Madam Chair, I appreciate you including that in this bill. It's going to go a long way to support our local communities. And we're taking a pretty profound step in making sure that tribes are part of the process, which I think is really important as well. Small resorts. We talked about small resorts. I know I'm filibustering, Madam Chair, but there's a lot in this bill.
No, I love it. Come on.
Small resorts. You know, we heard really impassioned speeches from folks, and I talked about my experience. My grandfather bought a resort cabin, refurbished it, but we continue to this day to live next to a local resort, family-owned resort on Blanche Lake in Otter Tail County. And to watch those families get to experience the outdoors that Minnesota has every single year, create those friendships, and we're modernizing the way that we tax those resorts to make sure that they can continue to be family-owned. That's another really special thing I think that we're doing in this bill. I don't want to stomp on Senator Putnam's great work that he's done in the Ag Committee, but we're doing a lot for agriculture in this bill, and I know he had to step away for Veterans Conference Committee, but we're doing a lot with agriculture homestead credits and beginning farmers, helping our farmers in a modern economy get started and try to keep family farmers alive. So I think that's a great thing. And then, of course, we've talked about it a lot, but sustainable aviation fuel, helping our ag sector, helping our airline and aerospace industry. All of those, I think, could make Minnesota really a leader for the modern economy. I want to very briefly talk about the social media tax. I mentioned in committee about the fact that in northern Minnesota, we tax minerals, right? When you take from us, when you extract from us, we tax it and help support local communities. And that's what the social media tax is. It is modernizing the way that we do taxes on businesses that extract things from us. In a digital economy, what these companies are doing is they are extracting and mining our personal data at no cost and then using it to profit off of us. It's not necessarily an innately bad thing, but we should tax it. We should make sure that they are paying us back for taking our value. I think it's a really simple concept, and I'm really proud that we were able to keep it in the Senate bill. I think going to conference, I want to hear the argument against that. I want to hear how people can defend not making the 14 wealthiest companies in the world to pay for the data that they're taking from us. It's something that I think Minnesota could lead the way on. I want to talk a little bit about data centers, something that's been a big debate this session. In this bill, we are keeping the data center provision, and I know that there are a lot of stakeholders at the table, from the environmental stakeholder groups, from the building trades, from folks that want to make sure that Minnesota is a headquarter for tech companies. Again, we just got done talking about how they should pay their fair share. We also should be a place where they can be incentivized to build, create jobs, and we're all going to use this technology, so let's do it right here in Minnesota, where we have the environmental standards and the labor standards that we need in order to do it right. So I just want to say, please know that those conversations are ongoing, that we are working with all the stakeholders to hopefully come up with a deal that can work with everybody, but we had to have it in the bill so that we can move those conversations forward. And now I get to a couple of my concerns. And I will confirm what Senator Nelson was talking about with cannabis. When we were moving forward with the cannabis bill in 2023, I told folks that I would support it if our local governments got a piece of the proceeds. And I was really adamant about that because our local governments take on much of the enforcement that comes with creating a new recreation industry. And to take that away from our local governments, I think is a really tough pill to swallow after the fact that we have legalized this new industry. And so I really take concern with that. And Madam Chair, I didn't bring an amendment today, but I want to start socializing this idea. I think we should raise the tax on cannabis. We should raise the tax. We are far below what other states tax cannabis, and I think there is an opportunity here for us to have a win-win. Let's increase the tax marginally on cannabis, and let's make sure that our local governments get that piece of that tax, because we can't take this away from them right now. So I hope that we can keep those conversations going into conference. Again, I didn't bring an amendment, but I want to start telling people, why don't we make the common sense decision to increase the tax and make sure that our local governments don't get their cut taken from them. LGA and CPA. This is something that Senator Klein, I believe Senator Putnam was on it as well, myself. This matters a lot. And it matters for everybody from Minneapolis and Duluth to some of the most rural and small communities that I represent. But what's really, I think, unique to point out is that in our rural communities in particular, we don't have the shifts that we can make onto businesses and industry like other communities do. So when we cut LGA and CPA, what that does is it passes on to property tax owners far more than other suburban and urban communities. And these are predominantly folks, if you don't know, rural communities are usually older. So these are folks that are, have a little bit more restrictions on their income, are perhaps been in their home for a long time and can't take on those additional property taxes. So I understand the need for everyone to be a part of the difficult decisions that we need to make, but it is something that I feel very passionate about, and I'm hopeful that we can keep the conversation going on those two issues, because I think with the other cuts that are being made in human services, and with reimbursement rates and some of those things, we're going to have other effects on our local governments and counties. And to add this on top of it is another difficult pill to swallow. Lastly, I want to talk about the film tax credit. We are theming this bill on embracing a modern economy. And I think one of the ways that Minnesota has modernized our economy is by embracing and trying to enhance the film industry in Minnesota. I think there is a true opportunity for Minnesota to be a leader in this industry. The reason is because we have so many diverse landscapes. I mean, you come up to my district, you feel like you're in a different country. I mean, I hope everybody in here has been to the North Shore and the Boundary Waters, but if you haven't, please, God, get up there because it's incredible. But think about the filming that we could do there in downtown Minneapolis, on our farms, in our regional hubs and at our colleges. There is so much opportunity to showcase what Minnesota brings for the film industry, and having this credit is a really, really critical part of it. I just want to say that I recently visited Chisholm, where they are operating a lot of the work that they're doing with the film tax credit. And to see the young people, to see the folks from Hollywood come to the Iron Range and work with our young people to inspire them to a new industry. I mean, these are kids on the Iron Range who, frankly, know a lot about mining and timber, but they don't know about Hollywood. And they don't know about the film industry and new opportunities. We are providing that by making sure that there's a tax credit that gives them that exposure, gives them those opportunities. So it saddens me to see this cut. However, I also know that we are making really difficult decisions, and we're cutting nursing home funding in other bills. We're cutting healthcare funding. We're cutting local governments and increasing property taxes for seniors and everyone. But I really think if we want to embrace the modern economy, one way we can do that can grow the economy, grow the pie, provide new opportunities, and make Minnesota a leader in this country is by maintaining that film tax credit. So I know we're not getting rid of it entirely, but I really hope as we go into conference committee that we can keep the conversation going and try to protect that film credit and maybe enhance it a little bit. So, Madam Chair, with that, I like the bill. I love embracing the modern economy. Let's keep doing it. Thank you.
Senator Weber, and then we'll vote. Sorry. I actually want Senator Weber to have the last word, so Senator Dibble.
Great. Thank you, Madam Chair. I've got comments that are twice as long as Senator Hochschild's. Is that okay? No. So I came from the House, and I think he said everyone's spoken, but not everything is said. My expression is everything's been said, but not everyone has spoken.
That's right. Yeah, you said it.
I'll just be very brief. I just wanted to echo and kind of support your presentation at the conclusion yesterday, embracing the modern economy. I think what this and for all the reasons that Senator Hochschild articulated very, very well about these phenomenally wealthy companies that are making billions of dollars. They literally have hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars just stashed in accounts, just sitting there. And that's all money they've made from us, from our data. And so, really looking at, what is going on in our economy, who's using resources, who's benefiting from the public effort and public expenditure, and are they helping with that or not? And that's the question to ask. In Minnesota, I think the question we ask and we answer, I think in an affirmative and positive way is, what is the public good and the public benefit from public expenditure? It's the economic test that Art Rolnick left us with. Every dollar taken out of private hands is then expended in a public way, and is it done in a way that has that larger benefit? Clearly, infrastructure, supporting people in getting to jobs, those sorts of things that are best done in a shared manner. And, we've shown that. That 2001 bill, by the way, I was here, but I voted against it. But what immediately happened after that 2001 bill is we started robbing from that commitment. And we started pushing public education back to local units and not following through with that general fund commitment. We've tried to reverse that ever since. And what did we learn yesterday? Record graduation rates, because we're reinvesting in public education, which means we're reinvesting in Minnesota. Minnesota, very average state, very average size economy, average population, cold, distant, flat. But we punch above our weight because we value that public-private cooperation, that partnership, and making sure that we have a progressive system of taxation and expenditure. And that's the other part of your bill, Madam Chair, is it makes our tax system more fair and more progressive. Just a couple of quick pet items that I think are really important to also highlight. Sustainable aviation fuel, a very, very important initiative. And that benefits all corners of Minnesota, the rural economy, our corporate sector, and doing that in a more environmentally beneficial way. And you were very embracing of working with stakeholders to make sure it was as positive a public policy as possible. And, a smaller item, but really important, that's the coerced debt subtraction piece that Senator Gustafson brought. And you were also a part of that, establishing those policies, to make sure that people under those extremely difficult circumstances at least receive some fair treatment in our tax policy and the like. Supporting people who are getting graduate degrees, supporting people who are getting, who are participating in critical access dental care. And then, maybe Senator Putnam, I don't know if you have a speech at the ready, maybe not, but I think the ag, I do have dirt under my fingernails. My response, if I would have responded on the floor to Senator Matthews the other day, I come from working people. My family is working people. In my family tree are ag people. I was a 4-H kid at one time. And so I am excited about the fact that all the ag and rural interests are talking about this as one of the best bills they've ever seen. That's a good thing, because that's good for all of Minnesota. Don't have a single farm in my district, but I do eat food, as it turns out. So I appreciate that. So that's all I'll say, Madam Chair, and look forward to supporting this bill on the floor.
Thank you, Senator Dibble. Senator.
Oh, Madam Chair, I'm sorry. I would, some people out here would be really mad at me. We had a lot of people show up about the film credits, and I know that you didn't eliminate it. There was some anxiousness about that. There is a cut to that, but I think we had some great testimony yesterday. Senator Hochschild mentioned it as well, and that's just another piece that I want to continue to talk about. Thank you.
Senator Dibble, I feel like I am being made the ogre about the film tax credit, but I would like you to know that when I was the tax chair in the House, then Representative Cohen came to me, and it was I who put the film tax credit in the tax bill, and I had to convince him that I was actually doing it. He wouldn't, he said, "You're putting it in?" I said, "Yes." "Are you really putting it in?" I said, "Yes, it's right here on the page, right here, Representative Cohen." So that's a difficult decision that was made here, but It is not because I do not support the work they do. Senator Putnam.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I just want to, just very briefly, of course, echo the things that my colleagues have said, in particular Senator Hauschild. In fact, I'd not like just to echo, I'd like to plagiarize, if I could, at some point, because that's one eloquent dude. And in particular, his concern about CPA and LGA is something that I've heard a great deal about, and it does impact us in Greater Minnesota a little differently than it does in the cities. So I'd like to reiterate his concern and add my own. In addition, however, and I know the idiom of this committee is to prioritize opposition and criticism, so it's at great risk that I'd like to praise you a little bit, if I may.
Sure.
In that, Senator Dibble mentioned briefly that this was a tremendous bill for agriculture, and it absolutely 100% is. It is a historically good bill for agriculture. And that's not just me saying it, that's the farmers I don't even know who have called and texted me and sent me emails to say how excited they are about this bill. Members, farmers have always been modern. They've always been dealing with contingencies beyond their control, whether it's the weather, whether it's the federal government, whatever it might be. Farmers are resilient, eternally optimistic, and always showing up for work. They just need a little bit of help sometimes in order to maintain some stability in the context of all the changes that they deal with. And that is the modern world in which we're in. And this bill respects the modern challenges and the modern opportunities of Minnesota agriculture. So I want to thank you across the board for many of the provisions in here. And one of them in particular is the beginning farmer tax credit. The beginning farmer tax credit has a profound impact on farmers throughout the state. It's a path from tradition to the next stage. And this is a path that you have essentially paved. You've put in an express lane by taking off the limit on that. And something that we've heard is that this past year, they were out of resources basically in January. And so by taking off this cap, you have created an opportunity for more farmers to have access to land and for more farmers to pass their land on to the next generation. So on behalf of Minnesota agriculture, I want to thank you.
Anyone else before I call on Senator Weber? Senator Weber.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was a little concerned about the length of my comments today, but Senator Hauschild has taken care of that for me. Anyway.
Talk as long as you want.
I do want to mention some of the things that I am impressed with and within the bill. But first, I'd just like to say thank you. I think, you know, as we started this session, we were joint chairs for a few weeks, and I thank you for the courtesy and respect that you extended to me as the lead and co-chair for a while. I've always found it interesting, the relationship that we've had in the last 3 years. I've had many people in this room and outside of this room who watch tax committee activities have always voiced their surprise at the fact that you and I were able to get along as well as we do. And I always enjoy surprising lobbyists and people. But the reality of it is that I do believe that you and I have been able to demonstrate that you can disagree without being disagreeable. And so I thank you for that opportunity and certainly appreciate the efforts that you have made to accomplish that. There are many good policy provisions within this bill. It's the homestead modifications, the beginning farmer changes, the fact that you have taken care of the fact that Senator Putnam will not ever have to say the word appurtenances again, and as well as numerous other items that are actually too numerous to mention. Yesterday, you referred to a modern economy, and then also our economy is continually changing. It always has, it always will. I agree with your statement. And certainly I look at the homestead modifications and the beginning farmer changes, and quite frankly, farming is a much different animal today than it was when I graduated from high school 51 years ago. It's different than it was 20 years ago. There was a time when corporate farming was a dirty word in the family farm issue. And yet today, many of our family farms have adopted a corporate structure in order to facilitate the transfer of the farm to the next generation. And the changes that have been made this year help to facilitate that and to ensure that they qualify for the homestead benefits and also even within the beginning farmer program to allow them to get into the business. And so we've seen the same thing with mining and with the helium deposits, and it requires something new. Senator Tomassoni used to tell me that actually, you know, the mining country and the ag country actually have a lot in common. He said the only thing, your resources are renewable, where ours are extracted and then they're gone. And that is true. You know, the elements that you included within your bill, sustainable aviation fuel. It's a new development. It is something that is coming, and I thank you for including that. You know, there's always a lot of debate as revolves around professional sports activities and centers. And yet, most people at the end of the day really want to have them here, even if they oppose some of the means by which state government gets involved. And so that's why when you mentioned to me yesterday about the amendment you were going to bring forth regarding the Twins Stadium today and Target Field and what have you, I didn't have any issue with that. And because I myself would have voted for that project had I been here at that time. But I know how controversial those things can be. I was first elected in 2012, and the legislature had already completed and made the decisions regarding U.S. Bank Stadium and for the Vikings and what have you. And yet there were questions asked of me during the campaign in 2012, even though it was a done deal. And so there are always going to be those type of controversial issues. Data centers. You know, some people say to me, well, you know, data centers, now you're supporting AI, artificial intelligence. And they ask me, are you in favor of artificial intelligence? And my tongue-in-cheek answer is, well, yes, since there seems to be such a shortage of natural intelligence,
Right.
I am in favor of it. But the reality of it is that artificial intelligence is here whether we like it or not. And it is going to have an ever-increasing role in society. And we as government need to figure out, number one, how do we protect the vulnerable people in our society from it? Because obviously it has great ability to be misused. And so that always needs to be a concern for us as legislators. And as far as the centers that are necessary to provide the massive amounts of computations that go into it, you know, the sightings of them, quite frankly, is a decision that belongs with our local government. They should always be able to decide where that center should be within their community. They and their utility providers should always be the ones that make the decision as to the availability of those resources that are needed to run that facility. And quite frankly, you know, we as a state, if there is something that we can do to promote that business development, I'm in favor of that as well. And some of the things, however, that I wish to mention today deals with, for example, the social media tax. You made the statement yesterday that, and even to some of the members today, that neither you nor any of your constituents are going to have to pay that. You mentioned something about the auction yesterday, and quite frankly, I haven't had enough time to do research and to discuss about that, but I have talked to people that buy advertising on social media. And you know what? They write a check out every month for that service. The United Kingdom recently initiated a tax on social media. I forget, I think the total amount was 120 million pounds, whatever that equates to. And Google has indicated that those people who buy advertising from them are going to be the ones that pay that amount. No, it's time that we recognize and admit the fact that there is no tax, there is no fee that we can place on business that ultimately will not be paid out of the pockets of our consumers. I don't think the Mark Zuckerbergs of the world are ever going to just simply write us a check because out of the goodness of their heart. They are business people. They have achieved the wealth that they have achieved because they have made good business decisions. And they aren't just going to willingly pay this tax and not charge the people with whom they do business. You mentioned a tax about on the very wealthy with the investment tax. Yeah, you're right. I have my investment income nowhere gets me close to ever having to pay that tax, nor do most of my constituents, to be honest about it. The next question we have to ask ourselves is for those individuals, those corporations, those trusts and estates that do have the assets to generate that kind of investment income, do we want them in our state? I think at the end of the day, the answer is yes. But quite frankly, Madam Chair, if we are going to continually increase our economic warfare on them, we have to remember that if they have the wherewithal to generate that type of income from their investments, they have more than enough assets to decide where they want to live. And quite frankly, many of them with much lesser amount of investment income have already made that decision, and they are no longer domiciled in this state. Someday, in our tax study committee, I would like us to figure out how many tax dollars have we lost because of our tax structure. Having been a council member and mayor of a border community in a border county, I have seen myself the moving vans move individuals and businesses out of my community for one reason and one reason only, and that is the tax structure in the state of Minnesota. You know, finally, Madam Chair, it was mentioned appreciation about a creation of AIDS. Quite frankly, the state of Minnesota has not proven itself to be a reliable partner. The cut in LGA, the cut in CPA, to me is the coup de grace, if you will. You know, you hear that term often. What does coup de grace actually mean? Some said it means a mercy blow. But the reason it's a mercy blow is because it's a death blow, and it ends the suffering. And yet, quite frankly, Madam Chair, as we look back over what has happened in this legislature for the previous 2 years and this year, what have we accomplished? You know, we took an $18 billion deficit, added $10 billion more of additional taxes and fees, and today we stand on the precipice of a $6 billion deficit. I don't know that that's something to be proud of. We have put mandates and restrictions and inserted ourselves in the negotiation process between businesses and local units of government and their employees. We have raised their costs. We have made a shambles of school finances, of local finances, of county finances. The governor's proposal this year included $400 million of shifts onto the shoulders of county government. In the previous 2 years, we created a variety of new programs that shifted or created $100 million of costs onto our counties. And quite frankly, the state hasn't even been able to provide direction as to how they're to implement those programs, including cannabis. Quite frankly, cannabis aid got canceled before they even got it. So what have we really accomplished in that respect? We went on a drunken spending spree, taking out the $18 billion surplus and the additional taxes and fees. And quite frankly, Madam Chair, it's the people of Minnesota that get to suffer the hangover in our nursing homes, our disabled, our local units of government. And now today, you know, the big surprise in your bill, I knew you were going to have, we've talked about it, you were going to have tax increases, and you knew that I wouldn't be able to support a bill with those kind of tax increases in it. But the real surprise was the cut in LGA and CPA at $20 million a year. After we've put all these other requirements on them, and particularly our counties. And Madam Chair, just in closing, let me say this. Even if your bill included all of the good policy items that I previously mentioned and referred to, even if your bill had no tax increases on business or individuals, that cut in the aid to our counties, after all the other things we've done to them, would demand that I vote no on this tax bill, which, as you are well aware, I am going to do. With that, thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much, Senator Weber. Before we take a vote on the bill, we have some expressions of gratitude to the people who work for us, work with us, advise us, and we are so grateful to the staff that we have from Senate Council, Nora Pollack, Eric Sylvia, Casey Munn, our Chages, Jillian Turney, and Mitchell Winter. We certainly express equally that with Senator Weber, those first weeks when we shared the chairmanship of the tax committee, and are grateful for the work of Dan Mickelberg, who was the co-CA, and Ryan Thornton, who was Senator Weber's legislative assistant. And also on the DFL side, Krista Broughton, and to my left, Kevin Montresor, and certainly Mitch Bergren. And I personally am very grateful for, and I'm looking over at them right now. When we meet in this room, we feel safe. And we feel safe because we have Capitol Security watching out for us. Thank you very much. And the Sergeant's office. So we are free to speak our minds and do so, and we are grateful to all that contribute to that sense of us being free to do our work. And I also want to thank finally to just all the members of the tax committee and all of you who come and lobby us, who are here either as individuals, for yourselves, speaking for yourselves and the things that are important to you, and the paid lobbyists, those that represent organizations or specific causes. We do our work better because of you. And with that, Senator Klein moves. Senator Klein moves that Senate File 2374 as amended be recommended to pass, and that bipartisan staff be instructed to make any technical changes to Senate File 2374 as amended to reflect the intent of the spreadsheet. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no.
No.
The motion prevails, and the bill passes. There being no further work for the committee, we are adjourned.